Caitlin Clark just had the most uncomfortable interaction caught on camera, and the internet can't stop talking about it. A reporter approached her at a Pro-Am event expecting a friendly chat, but what he got instead was pure ice. We're talking visible disgust, zero eye contact, and an energy shift that made everyone watching cringe. The contrast with her other interviews is absolutely brutal. Before we break this down, comment below. Have you ever had to deal with someone at work or school who just kills the vibe the second they show up? Let's hear your stories. So Caitlin Clark was at a Pro-Am golf event, doing the usual media rounds, answering questions, being professional. Then Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files approaches her for an interview, and the moment she realizes who's asking the question, her entire demeanor changes. We're not talking subtle either. This was a full-on physical reaction that everyone watching could feel through the screen. And Caitlin Clark has another Pro-Am behind her. I'm Scott Agnes of FieldhouseFiles.com here at Pelican Golf Club in Bel Air, Florida here on Wednesday afternoon, where Caitlin Clark just wrapped up another Pro-Am playing with Nelly Korda on the front nine, Lauren Wynn on the back nine, and an opportunity more than anything to hopefully bring attention, to bring the spotlight. Let's set the scene properly. You know that feeling when someone you really don't want to see suddenly appears somewhere you weren't expecting them? Maybe it's that coworker who always brings negativity to every meeting. Maybe it's that family member who ruins every gathering with their energy. Maybe it's that person from school who you've been successfully avoiding for years. The second they show up, the whole atmosphere shifts. Dark cloud rolls in. Your smile disappears. You get short with your responses. That's exactly what happened here. Yeah, I mean, like, these are the things that you love, like being competitive and, you know, even when I go out and play with family or friends or whoever, like, you make it competitive. Like, you don't just go out there and hit the ball. Like, you make a game out of it, you know, you have a 2v2, you do whatever. And I think that's what the fun part about golf. And, you know, really with anything I do in life, I'm pretty competitive. So I probably wouldn't play golf if I didn't feel those competitive juices flowing. So, I think that's certainly part of it that I love. Scott walks up, introduces himself as Scott Agnes from Fieldhouse Files, and asks Caitlin about having competitive juices flowing at the golf event. Standard sports question, nothing controversial. But watch Caitlin's reaction. Her head immediately drops. She looks down at the ground. Zero eye contact. Her whole body language screams, "Why is this guy here?" She looks genuinely uncomfortable, like she's trying to figure out how to get through this interaction as quickly as possible. Her response is technically fine. She talks about being competitive, how she makes everything into a game even when playing golf with family and friends, how that's just her nature. All perfectly acceptable answers. But the delivery? Ice cold. She's clearly just trying to get through the question without being outright rude. No enthusiasm, no engagement, just going through the motions until she can escape. And then, as soon as the question ends, you can practically see the relief wash over her. Thank God that's over. She looks like someone who just survived an uncomfortable elevator ride with their ex. The tension was real, and everyone watching felt it. A little messy off tee. I need some lessons, but honestly I haven't played a ton, but it was fun. I think anytime you get to be out here and see these women do what they do really well, it's really inspiring and it's really fun. Obviously, this isn't the environment that I'm usually in, so it's kind of a challenge and something fun that I love that I get to do. So just really thankful that ANNIKA and Gamebridge had me out here, and yeah, just a lot of fun. The weather turned out to be pretty nice, so everybody was like, sorry that it's kind of cold. I'm like, no, like, it was snowing in Indianapolis this past week, so this is great weather for me. But now here's where it gets really interesting, because immediately after that interaction, another reporter approaches Caitlin. This one's from Visit St. Pete Clearwater, asking if she and her teammates got to do anything fun in the area. Watch what happens. Complete transformation. Caitlin lights up like a Christmas tree. Huge smile. Direct eye contact the entire time. Engaged, warm, friendly. She talks about how she actually vacationed there growing up, how her family owns places on the beach nearby, how she was pointing out landmarks to her teammate, Lexi Hull, on the flight in. The contrast is absolutely brutal. Same person, same event, minutes apart. But the energy couldn't be more different. With the second reporter, Caitlin is genuinely happy to be answering questions. She's making eye contact. She's animated. She's giving detailed answers full of personal anecdotes. With Scott Agnes, she could barely look at him. She gave the bare minimum response needed to not be overtly disrespectful. So what's going on here? Why the dramatic difference? Well, if you've been following the Indiana Fever and Caitlin Clark closely, you probably already know. Scott Agnes has been involved in two major controversies this past season that likely didn't sit well with Caitlin or her fan base. First, there was the whole dark side incident. Scott famously referred to Fever fans, specifically Caitlin's supporters, as bringing a darkness with them. He essentially called the fan base toxic and negative. Now, whether he had a point or not isn't really the issue. The problem is that Caitlin has a massive, passionate fan base that's been instrumental in bringing attention and viewership to the WNBA. Calling them the dark side publicly is not exactly going to endear you to the player they're supporting. So when a reporter who covers her team starts calling those fans a dark cloud, she's probably not going to forget that. She's probably not going to be super enthusiastic about giving him great interviews and positive energy. The second controversy is arguably even bigger. Scott Agnes took it upon himself to report on an ankle injury that the Fever organization was actively trying to keep quiet. This wasn't a situation where the injury was public knowledge, and he was just providing updates. The team was deliberately not disclosing it, and Scott broke that story anyway. He put it behind a paywall article and revealed information the organization didn't want out there. Now, from a journalism standpoint, reporting injuries is part of the job. Teams hide information all the time, and reporters uncover it. That's how sports media works. But from Caitlin's perspective and from the team's perspective, that reporting caused problems. It created division within the fan base. People started questioning why the injury was hidden. Conspiracy theories started flying. The whole situation became messier than it needed to be. Caitlin has to look at Scott and think about the chaos his reporting contributed to. The division it caused among fans who support her. The unnecessary drama it created around something the team was trying to handle internally. And now he shows up at a Pro-Am golf event, introduces himself with his outlet name like she's supposed to be happy to see him, and expects a warm reception. Not happening. The body language doesn't lie. Caitlin knows exactly who Fieldhouse Files is. She knows exactly who Scott Agnes is. And she's making it very clear, without saying anything explicitly disrespectful, that she's not interested in giving him the same energy she gives other reporters. No shout-outs, no enthusiasm, no going above and beyond with her answers. Just the bare minimum professional courtesy required in that situation. Think about it this way. If someone Caitlin actually liked showed up at that event, someone she was genuinely happy to see, her reaction would have been completely different. If it was a reporter she has a good relationship with, someone who's been fair to her and her fans, she'd probably be excited. "Oh, hey, what are you doing here? Great to see you." Big smile, positive energy, maybe even a longer conversation beyond just answering the question. But with Scott, nothing. Just trying to get through it as quickly and painlessly as possible. That tells you everything you need to know about how she feels about him and his reporting. She's not going to cause a scene. She's not going to refuse to answer questions or be openly hostile. But she's also not going to fake enthusiasm or pretend everything's fine when it clearly isn't. The comparison between the two interviews is what makes this so obvious. If Caitlin had been cold and distant with every reporter at that event, you could argue she was just tired or not in the mood for interviews, but she wasn't. She was perfectly warm and engaging with the other reporter who asked about St. Petersburg Clearwater. She gave a long, detailed, personal answer, full of genuine emotion and memories. She made eye contact the entire time. She was present and engaged, so clearly Caitlin is capable of being warm and friendly during interviews at that event. She just chose not to extend that same energy to Scott Agnes. And that choice speaks volumes about how she feels about his coverage of her team and her fan base. From Scott's perspective, this has to sting a bit. He's a credentialed reporter who covers the Fever regularly. He's doing his job, asking legitimate questions, trying to get content for his outlet, and the star player of the team he covers can barely stand to look at him. That's not a great working relationship, but it's also the consequence of his previous reporting decisions. Actions have consequences, and apparently one of those consequences is Caitlin Clark giving you the coldest interview of your career. The internet, predictably, had a field day with this. People started comparing the two interviews side by side, pointing out every detail of body language. The lack of eye contact with Scott versus the sustained eye contact with the other reporter. The forced smile versus the genuine smile. The short clipped answers versus the long, personal responses. Social media detectives were all over it, and the consensus was pretty clear. Caitlin does not like this guy. Some people defended Scott, arguing that he's just doing his job as a reporter and shouldn't be penalized for breaking news or having opinions about fan bases. Others sided completely with Caitlin, saying that his dark side comments and the injury reporting crossed lines and showed poor judgment. The debate got heated, as internet debates about anything involving Caitlin Clark tend to do. But regardless of whose side you're on, the interaction itself is undeniable. You can watch the video and see exactly what happened. You can compare it to her other interview and draw your own conclusions. And those conclusions pretty much all lead to the same place. Caitlin Clark is not a fan of Scott Agness, and she's not particularly interested in hiding that fact anymore. The whole situation also raises interesting questions about the relationship between athletes and media. Athletes are expected to be professional and courteous with reporters, even ones they don't like or don't agree with. But they're also human beings with feelings and opinions. If a reporter says things about your fan base that you find offensive, or reports information you believe should have stayed private, are you obligated to treat them the same as every other reporter? Or are you allowed to show a little ice, to let them know through subtle body language that you're not happy with them? Caitlin chose the latter approach. She didn't refuse the interview. She didn't walk away. She didn't say anything disrespectful. But she made it very clear through her demeanor that this was not a conversation she wanted to be having. And honestly, that's probably the most professional way she could have handled it, while still making her feelings known. Scott Agness got his interview. He got his content. But he also got a very public demonstration of how Caitlin Clark feels about him. And that demonstration is now all over the internet for everyone to see and analyze. Whether that changes anything about how he covers the team going forward remains to be seen. But one thing's for certain, he's not getting a shout-out on the New Heights podcast anytime soon. So that's the story of Caitlin Clark's extremely awkward reporter interaction. Body language doesn't lie, and this one was screaming discomfort from start to finish.